Welcome back to number two. Today I wanted to talk about fear in regards to how you are feeling, what you're experiencing right now, and what I'm experiencing right now. And I want to encourage you. I was going to compile a list of quotes or philosophical people, or biblical quotes. I was going to do that. And then I decided, no. In order for any of us to do really well with this subject, and really help us become more whole and healthy again, it's really going to be important that you do your own research, kind of thing. So, I want to kind of go over a little bit about what fear is, what I believe it is, and how it expresses itself into our daily lives and our emotional states. And then I want to give you a couple of different ideas to look up, whether you do it on your phone, your computer, or you go down the library and you look it up. The DOG really wants to do something, and I need to make this video first. And I don't even know where the camera is, so I want to look into your eyes. I think I might have it. I don't know. I have the camera flipped so I could see what's going on. So, first of all, I want you to understand that fear is the absence of love. So when you find yourself in fear, you have it's I would venture to say impossible to touch love in that moment. That doesn't mean that you don't have it throughout the rest of your experience, but the time that you spend in fear, love becomes something that you become separated from. Now, this is going to play into how I feel that our mental struggles right now are not merely our own, that they've been put on us, and it's our job to figure out how to stop it. And the rabbit hole on this topic is deep, okay? I would like you to look up how fear affects you physiologically, hormonally, which would be physiologically, I'm pretty sure, how it affects your ability to take action, how it affects your ability to face truth, how it affects your ability to make sound decisions. And I'd like you to look into how entities and principalities use fear to control people. I'd like you to look into even in relationships. If some of you out there may be having troubles in relationships, and that's something that you need to look at. How children that grow up with abusive parents how they develop emotionally. I want you to go poke around a lot on this, okay? And I also want to bring up a couple of different things that I've discovered and I've talked about in several videos throughout the years. That is how our normal, everyday, modern lives signal our body physiologically to be afraid. You might not even realize it. We have a code in our, or at least most of us still do. I'm not sure what's going on with a lot of people, but fear is an emotion that we have that has use, okay? It is helpful. Imagine you're walking through the woods and you get the sudden feeling that, you shouldn't be there, only to find out later on that maybe there was a cougar stalking you. Or you turn around and you see a coyote trying to sneak up on you. Fear has its uses, okay? So you can't disregard it 100%. Because you have that fight or flight response, and that's based off of fear. Okay. Now imagine if you become so accustomed to something that should make you outwardly fearful because of the physiological thing that's happening in your body based on a fear. Imagine if it becomes so normalized that you don't even recognize it as fear, and you might even find yourself enjoying things doing it. Okay? This is, some of you are going to be like hogwash, okay? And that's fine. But I would like you to research what happens inside the human body when in a car driving 55 miles an hour or more. You drive every day probably, right? Most of you, anyway. You either get on a bus, or you drive yourself, or you're the passenger. What is physiologically happening to your body? What hormones are kicking off while you're driving, even if you don't consciously feel fear? What about flying? Pretty sure there's studies out there on this, guys. So we've self-controlled ourselves to the point, or maybe that was a part of it. Maybe getting us in that lower vibration by introducing us to convenience. Put us on a lower vibe so that when the fear porn that came in from all over the world over the past 24 months really was able to push us over the edge. It's astonishing what goes on in the human body and how it relates to how we perceive what's going on around us. And if we're not careful and we allow fear too much, we become depressed. I want you to look into this. I want you to look into the physiology of fear, how it's used by governments to control populations, how it's used by narcissists to control family members or loved ones. If a narcissist can do, I think they can. I'm just not quite sure. How it's used to, parenting, okay? Even though you may be the greatest parent in the world. And I used to say this was probably my best tool that kept my daughter safe. For instance, she was an escape artist, okay? She would escape. She would escape. She loved to wake up in the middle of the night and go out for a walk at very young, dangerous ages, okay? Because there are people out there you should be afraid of. You should stay the hell away from. But when you're 2-3 years old, 12 months old, just learning how to walk, and you know how to squeeze through the door even though the chain is locked at the top. You're not exposed to that, so you don't know that other people can be monsters. So at a very young age, I had to teach my daughter that monsters don't look like creatures most of the time. That monsters look like people. And I drilled that into her until she finally stopped. I think it took until she was about 5 years old. We were living in Montauk, and we were renting an apartment in a condominium where 90% of the condominium complex was run as a hotel. So people would buy these condos and just let the hotel run through it, and they made their money that way. Some of them used it as rentals, some of them lived there. But 90% of it, I would say, was run as a hotel. She would escape from our apartment, and I had to sit her down and say it would literally take forever to find out what room you're in and who got you in that room. I had to walk her through the 4 stories of this giant castle in Montauk called the Montauk Manor. You can look it up. And say, how would I know where you were? Okay? That finally stopped it. It stopped the escapism that she was doing that was causing me a lot of fear. So, whether good or bad, I don't know. I'm not going to beat myself up over that. But you got to understand that it will mold how you behave. And it's important for us to start understanding what real, natural, good fear is and what has been kind of seeped into our lives by virtue of convenience. So even though you may feel just fine driving down the road, you might have the music on, the windows down, the wind going through your hair, or you reach over and you hold your baby's hand and you're on a road trip and life is good, your physiology is telling you that you're about to die and you don't even recognize it. That is harmful to your body. So I'm not saying that you should stop driving. I'm not saying that right now at all. But to be able to recognize that and put yourself in a more conscientious state, like say, for instance, if I was going to go out, I don't think I'm going to go out today. I'll tell you what, if I have the slightest feeling that's not good, I won't get in the car. I just won't do it. I have no interest in putting my body through that at all. So I want you to become familiar with fear, how it's used, how you use it, and maybe even try to discover how much it's been used on you that you didn't even realize it was going on. Okay? So I think that will be very helpful as we move down this path. I asked you to look up religious texts about the subject. There's tons in the King James Version and other Christian versions, tons in there. I'm not super familiar with the Quran, but there are a lot of things out there that there are a lot of ancient religious texts that talk about fear. I want you to become really familiar with it. And I want you to start recognizing how that has to do with how you're feeling. And that's that. I am hyper aware of fear. And I'm really working hard on not having that on the top of my mind all the time. But the only way that you and I are going to be able to, and I'm going to do my own research. I'm going to compile some stuff. And if you're friends with me on Facebook, I will be posting stuff. I posted the famous quote from Dune, "Fear is a mind killer." That's thebomb.com. That is amazing piece of work right there. You can find all sorts of truth in fiction. So that's the homework for the day, I guess. And I'm going to do myself, and you'll see me posting if I'm going to start posting on my business page too, because I guess I'm considered a content creator on Facebook now. They changed something, they turned to Meta or whatever. But I do have a business page, so I think you can follow me and not have to send me a friend request. I don't even know if there's a friend request button anymore. I don't know how it works anymore. But I could go back to a personal page. I know I can do that. I'm like, whatever, I could post more about business if I leave it this way, I guess. Because before you couldn't do that. It was against the rules big time. But not that I post about business much. But however, I'm going to be posting some things I discover. I may be even posting it in the community section here on YouTube. Things like that. I might reshare videos that I find on it for you to reference and throw it in this playlist. So you can maybe get a direction, because there's just so much to it. There's so much about it that I really hope that you dig into and understand, so that you can not be enslaved to it. And it's in this day and age, it's a little hard, because now as most of us are waking up, most of us are, and we turn around and we see someone, with a 2-year-old, and the 2-year-old's got a face mask on. That is fearful. That's like, oh my gosh, that scares me. That scares me to death, because how the world has changed is how the children are influenced. And I want you to think about that. Think about how fear affected you as you were growing up. Duck and cover exercises used to terrify me. I was always afraid of the Russians who were coming to get us. And when 9/11 happened, I was floored. I'm like, it's happening right now. It's blah, so much. Now, it's important to understand there are actual threats out there in the world. But in order for us to squash those threats and remove them from power is by taking the power of ourselves and understanding what fear is and how it's used on us from a very young age. So, with that being said, I think I'm going to let you go. I don't want to have like long content today. And I hope that you have got to the bookstore and got a hold of those books. If you need to know the names of the books again, just go to the first video in this playlist, and in the description I have them all written out. But don't be afraid to explore other things too. It doesn't all have to be self-help. Be open to really exploring who you are, and know that when you're in fear, it's very difficult to take action for yourself. So, or in love, it's very difficult to take loving action, and we need more of that. Okay, that's what's up. Because if you allow yourself to stay in fear, it's going to just keep repeating and repeating and repeating. And I recognize this in my life right now because of all this fear that I have to whip and get into a line and recognize what's real fear and what's not real fear is very disruptive to my relationships. I freak out for nothing. And it's become more difficult to access my intuition on things. You know what I'm saying? So I want you to think about those things. Think about that and research it and start to understand it, and maybe even meditate. I am love. I move in love. And start separating it from your everyday psychology. That's going to help us a lot. I really believe that's really going to help us a lot in our discovery and working through the shadow work that we got to go, and understanding how not all of this mental illness or depression is all on you. It's up to you to fix it. But in order to fix it for everyone and yourself, we all got to do it one at a time. Maybe we can get a whole bunch of people to do it all at once. That would be good. So I think the baby girl needs to go outside and play. And then yesterday she was playing and she did another tumble. And today I was afraid to toss the ball for her. And she just said, no, let's do 2 high balls then. Just see a pop. So that's what we did. And we've stayed out of trouble. So we got to get another playing on, don't we, girl? You won't play? She's like, I don't have no fear. I don't fear. Very rare does she fear. I'll tell you one thing that she reacts hardcore to. When I get really sad, and I could be triggered by something I saw on TV. I could be triggered, like even like a TV show, like The Ranch, freaks me out sometimes. She gets really nervous. And what she'll do is she'll go, because Baby Cakes goes to bed way before I do most of the time. She'll go and sit right next to the bed on his side and just watch me. Because she knows I'm so upset. When I get upset, my aura is humongous and everything kind of ripples around. And trust me, yours is too. So, it's time to move off of that. One more tip for the day. Don't watch any mainstream news. Don't even watch it. Pay no attention at all. The closest to mainstream, and it certainly isn't, Glenn Beck. Look to alternative news sources because they're no longer telling us the truth about anything. Just look at it. You can tell. So, it's important. That is how they control us. That's how they deliver the fear to us. And it's got to stop. So commit to that for yourself. You don't have to tell me if you do or not. I really want you to commit to yourself because I care about you. Because you're beautiful people. And we've got the world at our fingertips. And this is the most amazing time ever that anyone ever knows of to be alive. And you were chosen for it. And it's because you can do it. We just got to work at it. We need to be participants in the awakening of a beautiful, happy society where people work together and people get things done and people love one another. All right, I'll see you tomorrow maybe. I gotta go play fetch it, catch it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You have a beautiful day.